So technically, we do have a quorum. We could go.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get started then. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for coming. As we always do traditionally, we'll start our meeting with a moment of silence. There's still a lot of things going on in this world. We, just have to be supportive of all the people that are struggling in one way or another. We really want to have thought about the folks in Michigan who had to deal with the school shooting and all of those things that are going on in our world. So moment of silence, please. Okay, thank you, guys. Let's go ahead and start with roll call the meeting to order. Mike.
Sure. Councillor Paulson. I see.
Here.
Councillor Moore.
Present.
Councillor Platt.
Here.
Councillor Thompson.
Here.
And Mayor Gibson.
Here.
Currently absent, we have Councillor Fender and Councillor Ocholi.
Okay. All right, hopefully they will be joining us. And we're just move right along. We're absolutely honored to have a special presentation from a wonderful team from PGE. We have Maria Pope, the CEO of PGE. And welcome, Maria. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for having us.
All right, it's good to see you.
Nice to see you.
All right, and we have Troy Gagliano. Hi, Troy. Haven't seen you in a little while. It's good to see you too. And I don't know that I've met William. William, you're here. Good to see you.
Thank you for having us.
All right, it's a pleasure. You guys have been such a great partner to us, and we're just happy to have you. So who's going to kick it off?
Troy is going to kick it off.
Okay.
Get us started, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Hi, city staff and city councilors, Mr. Mayor. Thanks very much for having us. I'm Troy Gagliano, your local government affairs representative at PGE for King City and all of Washington County. Want to thank you for taking the chance to put us on the busy agenda here. So thanks for your time. I've appreciated the chance to work with the city, folks like Mike West and Ronnie Smith, and the opportunity to serve on the Kingston Terrace Master Plan Technical Advisory Committee, and look forward to staying involved there and helping figure out ways that PGE can partner with you, assist in that effort on, fleet electrification, EVs, building electrification, and more. There's a lot of exciting things we can all do together. So, and Mr. Mayor Gibson, I want to wish you the best. We know you're reaching the end of your tenure here, but just want to let you know you've been a delight to work with, and we really appreciate you. And, when you look at people like Mike Weston and Ronnie, you're leaving the ship in good hands. So all the best in your second retirement. Okay? All
right. I appreciate Troy very much.
So I'll turn it over to Maria here. So joining me are our president, CEO, Maria Pope, and then, Bill Messner is our director of wildfire mitigation and resiliency. And they're going to provide some information on some lessons learned, things we're trying to do better following the storms from the last year, and share a lot of different things that we're doing to enhance resiliency of our electric grid. So with that, Maria, I'll hand it over to you.
Certainly. Thank you, Troy. And Mayor, it's an honor to be here this evening with all of you, but it's also bittersweet. Your leadership has been exceptional, and it seems like just last summer when we were together for your new opening of your city hall, and
yes.
That was obviously long before the pandemic, and I think the time has just collapsed. And I wish you all the best in your second retirement, but I wish also that you'd stay on, and I know that you are going to be available for any of all of us to seek your guidance as we move forward.
If you can find me, you can definitely.
I have a sense that we'll be able to find you.
All right. Thank you, Maria.
It's not just about sort of where's Waldo, but where's the mayor? And let me tell you, leaders are always able to be spotted. So
absolutely.
Thank you so much. It's just an honor. So we've got a little bit of a presentation that we'll share with you today. If we could go towards the second page there, let's see. Yeah, perfect, that one. So this is a slide which I think says it all, and that is that it's just been an incredibly humbling period of time. The ability to work with all of you, to be able to have partnerships with your management at the city, with law enforcement, with first responders, and most importantly with elected officials, has meant the world to the utility and to everyone at Portland General over the last almost 2 years now. If you think about when we first began planning and thinking about the pandemic, it was in the latter part of 2019. Our head of IT came to me and said, Maria, before we got for Christmas and whatnot, I just want you to know that if this comes over from China, we're beginning to think about it and we'll be prepared. And we began actually sending people home, particularly some of our people who work in large facilities like our call center and others, where we didn't know a lot about the pandemic, but we did know that being in large groups was going to be a real challenge. And they started going home in late February. It's been truly a humbling period of time, and I've learned a lot. And it's I would say that if we go back in time, I'd never been in 120-degree temperatures until last June. And to see 116 degrees in our service territory and the implications for particularly our most vulnerable citizens. But I was really grateful that at that high heat dome event, we were really well prepared, and we had a lot of outages. We replaced an enormous amount of equipment, but we learned from the ice storm of last February, and we implemented a number of things really, really quickly. In February, so 10 months ago, that was a 1 in 40-year ice storm. It was devastating. And there's no question, we have over 750,000 distinct customer outages. We only have 900,000 customers. And not all those people lost power on a percentage basis, because some people lost power twice, 3 times, even some people lost power 4 times as things continued to escalate through that 2-week period of time. And your region was not quite as hard hit as some others, but please know that we took those lessons very, very seriously. We also learned a tremendous amount from the wildfire period of time. And Bill will be speaking to us today, and he runs our wildfire task force. He runs also our disaster recovery and incident management group, no matter what the disaster is, and is an expert at that. But across the West, which also includes Australia, he's the chair of a group that helps us better understand as utilities and prepare and plan. And then, of course, we had all of the social unrest of the summer. And then almost 2 years ago, we began the pandemic. One thing that was very clear to us was that as an essential service provider, we don't go home. We stay working. Many of us work in the field. And I'm grateful to you all and to many others who allowed us to have extended work hours, to work in the rights of way, to be able to maintain and actually enhance our system's reliability. And it was very clear with people living, working, going to school from home, the tension across our communities, that we needed to make sure that our service was more reliable than ever. And in the first year of the pandemic, we reduced planned outages by about 20%. And this past year, we've reduced them by another 29%. So we have changed our work practices. We're working differently. Our safety record is also improved, even though we've had these new practices, and we have additional training for all of our folks. We really recognize that more than ever in our 130-year history, people were relying upon us to make sure that they could continue with their lives. And to your point of when we started the moment of silence, just to be able to provide a little bit less stress in people's days would make a big difference. We also know that we play an important role in the bigger picture. And since the beginning of the pandemic, and with some of the new international panel on climate change issues that have come out, we have recommitted ourselves to clean energy, to invest in smart grid, and to making sure that we're expanding electrification We just talked a little bit about, I was mentioning electric transportation and other sorts of things. We're helping reduce the carbon, not only doing it ourselves, but helping our customers and the communities we serve on their journey as well. And of course, preparing and making sure that we're ready for the next storm season. So it's Bill will go into a lot more detail on all of these issues, but let's turn to slide 3, because this is really really about the partnership, and a special thank you to you, Mayor. I want to make sure that it's recognized that none of us exists alone, and I think I appreciate that more now than ever. And it's being able to work with you to have a terrific relationship. We get good feedback from you, both positive and negative and constructive. And it's really important. In 2019, we know he'd had a series of outages, and we spent a lot of time doing work on a substation. A lot of cable replacement work was done on the area north of Durham Road and east of Highway 99. I hope that people have noticed the improved reliability and resiliency that we've seen from that pretty significant investment. As we go forward, there's going to be a lot of federal funding, and we're going to need to leverage the Investment in Jobs Act. And I think partnering together as we look at how we can decarbonize our economy, but how we can also improve the infrastructure and be able to have as many of the federal dollars flow to Oregon overall is our goals and our objectives. I really think we have a lot of in common. We're all essential service providers here, clearly on the blue sky days, but most importantly, working together on the darkest and most difficult days for our community members and all that we serve. So I also want to make sure that it's very clear. We know that we can't have trade-offs, and that as we go through this energy transition, it's absolutely imperative that we keep first and foremost reliability, and very importantly, affordability, because we know that many businesses and customers rely on electricity to be able to continue, but also for their bottom line. And then we are very cognizant of that. And I want you to know that that's an important part of how we think of everything. And so if you look at the next slide, this is our new integrated operations center, very close to where you are on the Tualatin Sherwood area. And this houses, we just opened it up. Quite frankly, we're quite proud of it. And frequently I just describe the building as a wrapper. But what that wrapper is around is our mission critical teams, our teams that work 24/7 and really need a stable foundation, not on landfill or on sediment that could have a problem during an earthquake, and also one where they can be, make sure that the security and all of those things are really important. So we moved the functions out of the downtown area, out of the floodplain, and it really allows us to interact and work better. And we inside the building have some new technologies and others that will allow us to be able to manage the grid at ever more granular details. And using technology is a key component of how we will be able to lead in an energy transformation that's clean, reliable, and affordable. So with that, let me turn it over to Bill, and then we'll take some questions.
All right, thank you, Maria. Next slide, please. Thank you. So in any event, we always learn, right? So we're always trying to learn from every event. And so in this slide here, I just want to mention a couple of things. One is that we're making a harder lean into automation, and we're piloting technology. And here's some examples of that. So we have a technology now that we're piloting that can pinpoint when the system's having an issue before it actually has an issue. And so instead of traditional means of having to go out and do inspections and look for it, we're having this ability, this proves out that we'll have the ability to harden our system well before it actually fails. Another technology that we're testing is this: when there is the fault, we can pinpoint where that fault is. And so we have a quicker response time with our crews and tell them exactly where to go and what the issue is and do the repair. And with all of that, we're continuing to expand our fitness inspections, fine-tuning that and fine-tuning our vegetation management. We recognize that that is an issue as well. We're always trying to get better at that. And we're having good partnerships with many in our community on how to go after those trees faster and quicker. And then lastly, we're also working with our customers. So just in case we actually do have a power outage, so what are their resiliency plans? And can we help them with their backup power as our crews are establishing or working very hard to get power back up? Next slide, please. This next slide is really concentrating on just some more of those examples of technologies and how we're leaning in. And I'll just kind of go from the left to the right, top to bottom, going across. But the first one you see there is a weather station in the left-hand corner there. And so as part of our technology in managing wildfire risk, it's really important that we understand the weather, not at a macro level, but at a micro level. And so we are installing weather stations to help inform our situational awareness, what decisions we need to make and how quick we need to make them. The next image there is a fuse, and that fuse is actually, it takes the energy when it blows, you're not seeing sparks or anything come out of it. So it's a fuse that contains that energy, so we're eliminating sparks. The panel there is really that smart technology that I talked about earlier. And then the switches that you see all the way over are switches that we have the capability to operate those switches remotely. So back in that nerve center that Maria talked about earlier, we had the ability to run that grid there instead of in the earlier times we would actually have to send crews out and do switching. The two pole images that you see on the bottom there are ductile iron poles. So migrating away from wood poles, ductile iron adds a couple components of resiliency. So think fire, one, they don't burn. The other thing, they're stronger. So think of the ice storm and windstorms. We get a lot of other benefits from doing this work. And we have fiberglass cross arms. So the cross arms that you see there are actually fiberglass. The last image I'll talk about, the green image, is what we call LiDAR. And what that is, a technology that we can fly over our system. We can see trees that potentially could impact our lines. So we can be very strategic about our veg management strategies and remove that risk before it becomes a risk. Next slide, please. And Maria talked a little bit about this in terms of the pandemic, but one of the things, us as a company is that we have to be prepared for all potential hazards that our company may face. And so we are a NIMS company, meaning the incident command structure, the same thing that fire departments, police departments go by as well, and FEMA. And so we are incident commander and all those different roles. That's how we're set up. So we have the ability to talk the same common language with our first responders so we can be effective and efficient. But some of the things we do plan for, Maria talked about how we were leaning in on a global pandemic before it came to the United States. We're storms, we always looking at storms, kind of more the bread and butter things that we do. Global warming is something that we're drastically facing as a society. And that is where we now have new tools like the public safety power shutoff as a tool that we can utilize if we need to turn off power. But of course, we have bad actors that are always trying to break in into the back door or the front door with cybersecurity. And so we have a whole department that is meant to keep those bad actors out. In fact, we test our employees with phishing emails and to see if they'll take that bait. So we're constantly testing our employees because they're our first line of defense. And we also have physical security. So we've just implemented a large system on our new security access to our buildings and new cameras to protect our assets and our people. And there's Cascadias. We have to plan for that event too. That is an event where it's not about if, but about when. So we have to lean in on that, and we're constantly looking at our plans on how to get better in that space. And then lastly, we're part of a regional grid. And so we have to look at regional emergencies. And what I mean by a regional grid, so we are, unlike Texas, which was an entity unto itself, we are part of 11 Western states in Canada, which gives us a lot of flexibility on how to run our grid. But it also means that we have to be mindful about what is happening outside of our normal service territory. So we have plans for that. And then real quickly, the chevrons on the bottom is just that we have emergency planning, we do exercises. Maria was just involved in a national exercise called GridX that has utilities and federal agencies and state agencies across the country going over scenario. We have internal scenarios as well that we practice, and it's always about plan, do, check, and always improving. System improvements. seismic improvements. We have been doing a lot of investment from a dam safety perspective and also into our grid. And then redundant systems. Maria talked about the IOC is probably the best example of that, about how we have that capability and we have a backup center to the IOC as well. But that facility, the ability to withstand that earthquake and be there for our customers to respond quickly is fundamental to our plan. It also has the capability, we put in trailer hookups too. So if FEMA had to come in and be regional, we have trailer hookups so we can have them right there on property. And then lastly, strategic partnerships. Great example is today's meeting. We want to be able to practice with you as well in emergency response or tabletop exercises. We are also part of the International Wildfire Risk Mitigation Consortium, which Maria mentioned. We are part of other trade associations as well, but it's really important that these relationships, and one quote I always use with Maria is that Joy says that, we want to have relationships now, not in the time of crisis. So full believer in that as well. And with that, let me turn it back over to Maria.
Great, thank you, Bill. So if we look at the next slide, I think I've covered a number of these items here. It's really all about partnerships. It's about working together. I think, clearly that's helpful when times are good, but it's essential when times are tough. And if there's anything I've learned, it's humbleness by Mother Nature, and even self-inflicted wounds, and to be transparent. And move quickly on those things that are most important to our customers. And so the last, we had the 45,000 customers out on Saturday, and I couldn't have been more pleased that all but about 600 had their power restored by Sunday morning. And quite frankly, the size of the tree that had fallen into our power lines was too dangerous to manage in the wind and in the dark. And so we made a call to come back on Sunday morning when it was light and not as windy. If you'd asked us a couple of years ago with winds at that level and the rain and everything, we probably would have had not 45,000 customers out, but probably 60, if not 80,000 customers. And we probably would have taken us maybe 3 days to have everybody restored. So we're fully expecting a very tough winter, but please know that we have taken to heart the lessons of the past, and each year we're going to continue to work on getting better, whether we have storms or not. But we fully appreciate how important reliability is, as well as cost. So with that, Troy obviously is someone you know well, but we're a small company and we all work really closely together. So please contact any of us if you need anything. And we'd love to take some questions.
Well, Maria, I'll start it off. Thank you guys so much. It was outstanding, the things that you guys have been doing and the improvements that you've made. Of course, being part of King City, we like to take credit for the fact that King City had enough forethought when it was developed in 1966 to be one of the first cities to have underground power lines. I don't know if that's exactly true, but we were one of the first. We were on the leading edge by putting our power lines underground. And, we benefited from it. There's no doubt about it. The ice storm didn't affect us, and this last windstorm didn't affect us. We never lost power. We've had a few little hiccups here and there, but it was always something that never lasted more than a couple hours or something like that. So we are very thankful to be in this situation that we're in. I think you're absolutely right. And Mayor, one of the things I just want to mention is that since you started putting those lines in at about in the 60s, they were probably direct buried. And at some point in time, we're going to need to come back in and replace them. Okay.
And which will mean digging them up, putting them into conduit, we have a backlog of conduit that was laid direct buried, as does every utility in the country, because that was the standard of operation at that for about almost 20 years. So just know that we are aware of those issues, and we are working through all of the backlog. Every year we handle miles and miles and miles of it.
Okay. Well, as a council, we'll need to pay attention to it along with.
When you dig up your streets, let us know and we'll come in and fix our conduit at the same time.
I'm sure that Mike and the rest of the team, they're all over that one. So for sure. And there was just one more thing, and then I'll open it up to anyone else who has questions. But I just recently saw a report regarding this last windstorm, and they specifically talked about the damage that trees suffered because of the heat over the summer. That 116-degree weather damaged some trees. And now there's another concern about trees that were damaged during that heat wave. And have you guys really been able, how are you participating?
So
in
this is a big deal.
Mhm.
This is a very big deal. And so trees that were, and generally it wasn't just the high heat dome this past June or some of the other high temperatures. It's been a series of bigger temperatures. And I'll tell you, at my mother's house,
Mhm.
she had some Douglas fir trees as well as some hemlock. And she lives up by the zoo. And she had half a dozen like full trees that were dead or about to completely die and overstressed.
Mm.
And, those are exactly the kind of trees all over our service area. In fact, there's a bunch of them in the back of our integrated operations center on the neighbor's property that are completely dead. And those stressed trees will come down in high winds and storm conditions. And we saw this on Saturday was full trees rather than just limbs causing problems. And for Intel in particular, it created a number of voltage issues, which disrupted some of their manufacturing operations. So we're going to be living with this for a while. If we continue to have the temperatures we are, I think this could be increasingly problematic for us.
All right, is there anything we need to be doing around that issue?
Yes, just constant vigilance. If you see dead trees, particularly, next to any infrastructure or homes, I know we love our trees, but they should come down.
Okay.
So we have a program. We've talked with the city of Sandy and with others about it. Right tree, right place. And in all honesty, let me just take my mother's as an example. She really shouldn't. I don't know why she had hemlock as a species on her, in her yard. That should be on the coastal range with a lot more. She should. So I think whoever put those up there ages ago. There's, that we have a lot of trees that people planted because they just liked how they looked, and they're not strong trees. And in our changing weather conditions, we'd be happy to talk with you about right tree, right place and what we can do.
Okay. All right.
The other I would ask is that, oh boy, are the people who are doing our vegetation management, they're trying to do their very best. And sometimes there are community members who really are very challenging when it comes to removing trees that are dangerous. And, it's, if you keep your tree there and it's, in violation of natural electric safety codes, it's not just hurting your reliability of your power, but it's hurting the entire community's reliability.
Mhm.
And so this is, I think it's really important that, and I've taken a much tougher stance on it. And I think our more lenient stance under, previously got us into trouble. We tried to accommodate people who were complaining, and that's something that is really dangerous to do, and it hurts other community members who may be elderly or have medical conditions and rely on electricity for their health and their well-being. So just so you know, you may hear a few more complaints as our tree trimming folks come through.
Okay. All right.
I get them probably not weekly, but at least monthly.
I can imagine.
Mr. Mayor, I have Smart Acholi up next.
Okay. Smart?
All right. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, smart.
Hi. Sorry, I joined the meeting and I was trying to do the mute thing and it wasn't working for me, so I was so sorry about that.
Okay.
Now Ronnie did their magic behind the scenes, and now I have access. Thank you. So thank you for the presentation. Really very helpful. We appreciate what you do for the community and how you respond, like the mayor said, whenever we have any kind of power outages or any situation, your team is out there just trying to make sure they restore as quickly as possible. So really appreciate that quick response there. So thank you for what you do, providing the services. So my question to you is, I know the fiscal security has been a challenge for pretty much a lot of people, mostly like theft, cable theft and other things, vandalization and things like that. So with the COVID and everything, have you noticed any decrease or have you seen more?
No, we've seen an increase. So it falls into a couple of categories. People who are either jumping, and we have and we are putting in much higher and more significant and more expensive fencing on a number of our locations. We have significantly enhanced cameras and ability to see all of our sites. We have alarms and whatnot. And this is a project that's been about 3 years in the making, but we've significantly enhanced our security. And unfortunately, we've also had to hire quite a bit of additional security staff and a contractor who, particularly if people are working in areas where there's a lot of homeless and the needles and things like that, we just cannot have our utility workers working in dangerous situations themselves. So it's been a real problem, and it's very discouraging. I feel pretty strongly, particularly with a couple of our line centers, where there are some dangerous situations adjacent, and we're working through it. But thank you for the question. And it's I grew up my whole life pretty much in Oregon and in this area, and it's very sad to see. But I feel very strongly in the responsibility we have to our folks who go to work every day.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to hear you're making improvement, because again, that man-made issue and then natural disaster and everything else. I mean, again, with the stores, when they get hit with theft, it translates to the customer coming in, and that cost is added to whatever you're purchasing.
You're absolutely right. The other thing that we're experiencing is just like everyone else, because there's some fences that we can't get put up right away because of supply chain issues. And they've just been delayed a couple of months. But if you all have projects that you want us to work on or anything, please let us know as soon as possible. The sooner we know, the sooner we can plan. And the supply, we deploy a lot of equipment, and it's really important that we are able to meet the deadlines for builders or for municipalities or for others. And so we will be set up for success if we know as soon as possible we can put transformers, even just small Padmore transformers are very hard to get right now. So if there's any concerns you have, please let Troy or others know, and we will advance order inventory so we can meet your deadlines. This is a problem that is not going to solve itself in a couple of months. We will be living with this at least through a year, maybe two.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Smart. I see that Micah has his hand up. Micah?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Really appreciated it. And I've had the opportunity to speak with you when you were out here for the opening of the City Hall. Really appreciated that interaction as well. I had just a couple of quick questions. Wanted to find out, with the kind of push towards renewable energy, what percentage right now of PGE's production is coming from renewable resources?
So, I'd like to think of it roughly about 40-45% of our renewable resources. So that's wind and solar and hydro. And we're about 25% hydro, and then the balance is everything else. If you go and you look at this past year, so what that does not include is today. It was stormy and cloudy and rainy here, but in Southern California, it was sunny, and we were importing excess solar energy out of Southern California and Arizona. So those numbers are not included in our percentages. The other is this past year in 2021, we used a lot more energy than we normally do because of the ice storm, because of the high heat events. And during those periods of time, there was very little wind energy on the system. And and we had, not as much solar as you might have expected. And so when we have less, when the wind doesn't blow, we have to substitute it with renewables or imports from other areas. And so I haven't seen the final numbers for 2021, but if I was a betting person, our use of renewables on a percentage basis will go down because our total usage went up quite a bit, and there's only so many renewables. That being said, every year we're importing more renewables from other parts of the West. And so if you think about it, it's just like portfolio theory. We try and bring, we use the first energy we use every day is wind and solar energy, whether we produce it or we can get it from someplace else. We then have hydro, and then you go up the stack to the thermals. And so we maximize, Westwide, we maximize those renewables. So every year we're building more, but with such an extraordinary year, our energy usage was more than 10% higher than it has been in the past because of weather. And we had about 3% growth. So I wouldn't be surprised if our thermal numbers are up quite a bit this year. It tends to also, La Nina, El Nino years, the runoff happened quite early this past year. And so you don't get quite as much energy value. So there's probably more than you want to know. But when you deal with Mother Nature, you kind of have to make sure you get a little bit of variables. So it's what we really look as we look at our decarbonization goals of 80% reductions by 2030. You sort of have to take some multi-year averages so you know that you're truly making systemic change. Last winter, we closed the Boardman coal plant and we brought online the first of its kind wind, solar, and battery storage facility at scale. Gosh, maybe it's about 45 minutes drive further east from the Boardman coal plant. And so that was an important shift for us. And I'm really pleased with the progress we're making. And King City, as well as many others, buy 100% renewable energy from us. And those projects will be starting to come online shortly as well.
Great, thank you very much. If you don't mind, I had one other question. I just wanted to.
Oh, go ahead, Michael. You still have the floor.
I was just curious with, and this is kind of switching subjects here, but I know with the wildfires we experienced on the west side of the mountains in the last couple of years, it's really kind of brought home some of the concerns that we have in the more metro community about wildfire, and especially with the example of what has happened in California with aging infrastructure being somewhat the culprit for some of these fires. I wanted to know, how far along is PGE in inspecting its infrastructure and in kind of understanding, updating where we need to get to hopefully prevent those types of occurrences?
This is a really good question, and I'll have Bill take an answer to it. But I'm not so sure. I think with the amount of change that we are seeing and the pace of that change that we're seeing, I think we will be learning every year. We have done an extraordinary amount of work, but we have an extraordinary amount of work still to do. And so we are investing in the system. We're studying it, and to me, I look at it a little bit like peeling an onion. And every year, I've been in this job now for about 4 years, and I'd say pretty much every month, every quarter, I learn something. And the one thing that I'm really proud of is that people like Bill, who are subject matter experts, have teams where we can get after things right away. And so we're continually peeling back the onion on this topic. But there's much has been accomplished and much work is left to do. So Bill, do you want to talk a little bit more in the detail of this?
Yeah, thank you, Maria. And thank you for your question. So from an inspection standpoint, for the last several years, we have been, or a few years, we do an annual inspection in what we call our high fire risk areas. So we annually go out those things, we're looking for issues, and we're making improvements right then and there. And if we can't do it right then and there, we're scheduling that work right behind it. So that's how we're proactively going into that space, which is, I think, mostly to your question, but from an inspection standpoint. Yeah. I mentioned earlier from the International Wildfire Mitigation Consortium, which is another way of us exponentially taking our learnings. We're learning what's happening in Australia, North and South America as well. So we're trying to learn in that space in real time as well, and not having us always have to learn the lesson, but let's get on that exponential curve and learn. And then, of course, there's the investment in the grid itself. And so we're constantly looking, okay, what do we do to invest in this grid? What is the best use of that technology so we're not the source of that ignition? So we are filing a wildfire mitigation plan by rule in the end of this month. working with the commission, the Oregon OPUC. And so that will be filed as well. So we're very much in line with our regulator on this space.
Thank you. I guess actually, if I could ask too, how do you determine what is a high fire area?
So it's a whole risk analysis process that we go through, and it's we have a whole team that goes through thousands of iterations, and it's really about where could a fire start that could get out of control, and that's really about, okay, how do we minimize that being that ignition source? And so we will constantly refine that. I don't think what I will tell you today will be what will be a year from now, and part of that is because of climate change. So we have to constantly be evolving and learning at the same time. And we cannot assume that this problem is static, because it's not.
So I would also say, I take that, so 3 variables, heat, humidity, and wind. So the combination of those 3 variables, when they get in the wrong categories, can create an environment in which fire can take place. The biggest issue is you have trees or tree limbs through the wind flying into our equipment. I would also say that from the beginnings of the restoration from the campfire, Bill, his co-workers, team members, we have sent people to California every year. And every year we learn something different and we bring it back. And I can tell you from the campfire in Paradise, our vegetation management folks who came and who went down to help with restoration came back as changed individuals, and they immediately began doing their jobs differently in our company. We learned differently the year after in Amador County, sort of in the foothills of the Sierra Nevadas, a little bit farther south, with restoring when they shut off the power proactively, and help. And so we understood that a little bit better. And then most recently, really understanding some of the technologies, not only the infrastructure technologies that Bill just walked you through, but how we can handle our operational technologies and our field technologies even better.
Thank you. I really appreciate the responses.
Welcome.
We feel blessed that rain came early this fall.
Yes.
You're on mute, Mr. Mayor, if you're trying to speak.
I need to unmute. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Quick question regarding future charging stations. And I understand that it's always been of our plan as we grow in our UGB expansion area to have plenty of opportunities for charging stations for electric vehicles. Are there any programs available? Say, for instance, we want to do a charging station outside City Hall and maybe something at our existing town center. How does that process work? Or is that something that we work together as a team, or do we fund it, or you guys have programs and grants? I'm just curious about that.
Right, you want to cover that one? And we would love to partner with you on these. And I would also, as you expand, I wouldn't be surprised if you begin to see many more garages have chargers built into them.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I can send over a few things tomorrow, actually. I can send you some links to some specific programs we have. One's called a Drive Change Fund, which, as Drive indicates, it's related to electric vehicles. A Renewable Development Fund, where cities, nonprofit groups can get up to, I think it's 85% of the cost covered for a project. For example, solar on top of a roof. Beaverton's new public safety center has that. And then your other question was about like who kind of pays for what. One thing we can do pretty simply, I can connect the right staff for you with a staffer over here, a gentleman by the name of Luke, who can do at no cost to the city, like a basic analysis. If you have a specific address, like you said, in front of City Hall, he can look at that location, PGE's infrastructure around there that serves that location, learn from you how many charges you might be talking about, how many cars you want to charge, that sort of thing, factor all that in and give a rough indication, kind of accurate actually, of what kind of upgrades we're talking about, what the totals of those might be. So that's basically a free technical analysis of a specific location you have in mind.
Yeah, if you could forward that information to Mike Weston and Jamie Fender, I think that would be ideal. Okay.
You got it. I'll get it tomorrow.
Okay. Any other comments, questions from anyone?
Any of the counselors, correct?
Counselors? Okay. All right. You guys were outstanding. Really appreciate it. I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate your partnership. From day one, you guys have been here for me and support and this entire team. And I know that it's going to be a long, long lasting relationship moving forward. This is a great team of counselors who have some great ideas and have the energy to really see a lot of things through. And so I know that you guys are going to be hearing from them, and it's going to be a good working relationship moving forward. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Gibson.
And
Congratulations on your second retirement.
Okay, I appreciate it very much. I'm looking forward to it.
And Maria and Tony, before you guys sign off, just know that I think now that we've gone through this whole scoping project for the last couple of months, we're now getting ready to move forward again. So you'll probably see that SAC and TAC start kicking back up once the new year starts coming around and start getting rolling again.
Thank you,
That's
Mike.
great.
We've just been in a pause for, I think, the last 4 months, it seems like, but we should be getting going here shortly.
Yeah, I heard from the consultants a couple months ago. So yeah, thanks for the confirmation on that. We look forward to it.
Yep.
Thanks.
And,
Thank you all. We appreciate your time.
Okay, and Jamie Fender is on
Good night.
for a very specific reason, but she says thank you. We're texting back and forth, and
Oh, thank you.
she wants you to know how much she appreciates the presentation. Okay.
All right. Thanks again.
All right. Thank you, guys. You
Take
guys
care.
have a great holiday.
You
You
too.
too.
Same to all of you. Bye-bye.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. Next up, before we go into open forum and public comment, based on last month's meeting, we had some questions and concerns surrounding what it is we can and cannot do or should not do during public forum. And I've asked Kate to talk a little bit about some ground rules related to public comment and open forum. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Kate to talk about this a little bit. And Kate, help us to be transparent and educated, please.
Sure. Well, this is very exciting. I wish I had like a half an hour worth of things to tell you, but really it's about 30 seconds, not 30 minutes. So, I was kind of looking at what to do, right? So, and reflecting on where we are, where we've come from. The whole time I've been on council, this is how we've been meeting, except for, that one time.
That is amazing. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah. And so but the one meeting that we did have in person, when you're in person, things run differently. It's you can read people's body language. Everyone like turns their attention to someone. It's just different. And so I think that's part of the reason that we don't have established routines necessarily. So we're growing as individuals and as council people, and this is just kind of a part of that, right? Kind of taking another look at why we do what we do. So Robert's Rules is one of my favorite things in the world. And when Ronnie said that he ordered a book for each counselor, that was like an early Christmas present to me. So thank you. I'm pretty excited to have my own loaned city copy to look at for the next few years. So I'm looking forward to that. But regarding public comment, so if someone, last month was tricky because it was Ronnie reading an email or a letter, right? So if someone is in person providing public comment or via Zoom if they're speaking, then we can ask questions. We can ask questions, but what we shouldn't do is have a discussion. So if then the mayor wants to allow any kind of discussion, the mayor can do that. But we all know that we can't take any action or make any decisions. We all know that, unless it's already an item on the agenda.
Yeah.
So that's the other piece of that, is that it's important for at least this first round of public comment should be related to items on the agenda. So some cities actually ask the people providing public comment which item it's related to before they provide their public comment. And that's something that we could consider as well. And then I sent everybody a link to our charter and our municipal code. And I have to tell you, I love reading stuff like that. I can't remember, like, to pick my kid up from school every now and then, but I can remember what 2.0.6 says, right? I remember to get my kids from school, everybody.
I knew you would.
You ride the bus. That's how I remember. So I just wanted to address that. And the mayor was kind enough to let me talk for more than 30 seconds, but not 30 minutes. So.
Well, and I appreciate it. And, you know, we're always going to continue learning. And we just want to be the best at what we're doing that we can be. We just want to do it right. And that's always been our motive for doing what we're doing. And it just goes to show that we don't know everything. And we do want to make sure that we tweak and adjust as we go along once it's apparent that we need to do it. And I think that's what's important here.
And I want to make sure all counselors know if there's something that you want on the agenda, you need to tell the mayor and the city manager that you want something on the agenda.
In advance of the meeting.
What was that?
In advance of the meeting.
Yeah, I think we have
Before
to have
before the agenda is circulated,
Right.
or publicized, really, right?
Exactly.
But, and I think one thing that really resonated with me last time that Mike, that, you know, at the last meeting, was just how, one, we're not doing any good to our public if we're catching city staff by surprise and forcing them to make comments on the cuff, which are then made on, you know, which are on the record, and then, right, and I hold my hands up because everyone knows how much I love to talk, and everyone knows that I like to be, you know, engaging with people. And I think I especially have to, you know, remind myself that public forum is not the time to discuss with people. So I will certainly continue to do that. But I think in attending, and I'll jump back to this later, but I attended some meetings with the mayor this week, and some of the discussion about how public comment was raised, and it was interesting what other cities are doing. And I think that's a good discussion for one of our executive sections, not to make decisions about it, but to decide, do we want to revamp it? What, you know, all of those things, and then we can address it in the public forum and in a more appropriate way. But it is quite, you know, some places only allow written comments ahead of time, and, you know, so I personally wouldn't vote for that, but anywho, I don't.
Right. And I think it's helpful, the additional information that Ronnie has put here. And I would encourage our residents, the public, to pay attention to what's written. When you look at the agenda, look at what this says. It gives you some guidance, some information on what your role in is if you want to make public comment. If you want to raise an issue, this is kind of a very brief guideline on what your responsibilities are, what you should do in advance. So I think that's going to be very important too. Okay. Any other comments surrounding this? Kate, thank you. It was great. Mike?
Yeah, I've got, the other thing that we can do is raise our digital hand when we want to talk. It really helps in the process of the meeting. Also to some of Kate's points that she had made there, and Jamie as well, and I appreciate you bringing up those 2 points, is that when we open up the public comment period, if somebody introduces something that's not on the agenda, then we can always have a vote to add it to the agenda later in that meeting or to a future agenda. And if it's a subject matter that doesn't require a lot of research or background, or you don't want any staff input from, then you could probably just throw it on that agenda later on, and then we can discuss it under that added point. But if you want some sort of informative feedback from the staff, then we want to try to put that on a future agenda, because then we can go back, research the data and facts, and try to bring an educated and informed perspective to the table. That's just my 2 cents on those. I appreciate both Councilor Moore and Councilor Fender's points as well.
And I think that's a good point. And once again, because we want people, if someone brings something to the council that's on their mind, we have an obligation to respond to it, whether we respond to it. If we know the answer to it at that point, I think we should have the ability to say, look, well, this is what we've done. This is what we've already looked into, and this is what we have found. If not, we do need to make sure that we let people know that it's something that we will look into. It's a matter of us now trying to understand better what the issue is and what it is we can do to help you. I think that's absolutely important, okay? So with all that being said.
Mr. Mayor, we got Councilor Moore with her hand up.
Oh yeah, okay. Oh, your electronic, I see it. You know, it almost blends in with your box back there.
I know, it's hard to see. So some councils have 2 public comment sections, one early in the meeting that has to do with agenda items, and then one at the end that's kind of a, like the mayor was talking about, tell us what you need to tell us. And that I like that too, because then at the end of the meeting, we can hear questions, concerns, comments, and then it's almost like if that warrants an agenda item on the next one, then, you know, the public is helping to craft our agenda, which is not a bad thing. So, all right, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments on this particular topic? If not, we will go into, and I'm only going to read the bottom line where I usually start anyway, and we're going to open it up to public comment. At this time, the council will be happy to receive your comment pertaining to items on the agenda, including questions, suggestions, complaints, and items for the future. Each person's time will be limited to 3 minutes.
All right, Mr. Mayor. Ladies and gentlemen, if you can go ahead and raise your digital hand, I could go ahead and get you into promote you to a panelist, and you could ask your questions to the city council. First up, I have Viva Gaylor. Viva Gaylor is, go ahead and accept that invitation. Viva, you're on mute.
Ronnie, she has 2, maybe do the, oh, there she is. Okay.
Hi, Viva.
Good evening.
Oh, hey, Viva, hold, can you have 2 logins, and I'm getting feedback.
Did we lose her?
Maybe. Viva, I'm gonna put you in the back, and then I'm gonna go ahead and go with the next one real quick. All right. I have Caleb Weaver from Ridwell. Caleb, go ahead and accept that invitation.
Hello, Mayor and Council.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. So after listening to your all's discussion, and I know there's been some back and forth about putting Ridwell on the agenda, I will keep this very short and frame this as an ask to come back and do a more formal presentation on the agenda. I hear you all loud and clear. And as somebody who joins these meetings, certainly not as often as you do, but I appreciate the attempted organization. So very quickly, my name is Caleb Weaver. I run public affairs for a small company called Ridwell. We are Seattle-based. However, we launched our services in the Portland area last year, and we are serving about 19,000 households in the greater Portland area. We provide a waste reduction service where we help households figure out ways to reduce the amount of material that they're generating, both by making smart decisions on what they buy, identify new opportunities for reuse, and then helping with hard to recycle items that are not part of the curbside recycle program. And so we provide a service. We live in a day and age when people expect to be able to do things from home. And what we do is we offer that service where we don't actually do any of the recycling. We were open about that. We don't do the reuse. But what we do is we identify organizations, ideally locally. We work with a number of local nonprofit organizations, particularly around reuse, but we look for recycling opportunities locally as well. So for instance, with Agilex for styrofoam. And what we do is that we identify partners that can reuse or recycle items that, again, are not part of that curbside program that you all work with the garbage haulers on. And then what we do is we offer a pickup service where we take that item and we get it to that partner who is going to reuse and recycle it. Again, we don't believe that we compete in any way with the garbage haulers. We're not trying to disrupt their service. We're not trying to change their service. We are merely providing an optional add-on for people that want to do a little bit more and are interested in trying to reduce their waste. So we've been trying to work through some regulatory questions with Washington County and with a number of other cities. We don't believe that the codes in most places actually prohibit us from operating, but we also understand that these codes were written without a service like ours in mind. And we are happy to be regulated. We are happy to share information about where all of our stuff goes and who we're picking up from. We just want people to have the option to take advantage of a service like ours. That's all we're looking for. So we'd love to continue the conversation at a future date. We'd be happy to provide more information in advance in the future. And so with that, Ronnie and Michael know how to reach me, and I'll hopefully be in touch about coming back in the future.
All right. So Caleb, I have a couple of questions from, first it's going to be Mike Weston and then Councilor Jamie Fender. So let me, go ahead, Mike.
So Caleb, welcome to the area. Do you guys, sorry, lights. Did you get all your permits and everything? Last time I heard you guys were kind of trying to get your Metro solid waste permit, and like there was a DEQ thing and all that. You guys all good to go?
Both of those applications are in process. We have no indication that there should be any issues. Again, because these codes weren't written with a facility like ours in mind, we just sort of wanted to understand how things applied and what made sense. Ultimately, we ended up applying for the facility permits. Again, we have nothing to hide. In fact, if you look at our website, we actually list on our website where all the material goes, how much material ends up in our bags that actually can't be used by our partners. So again, we're happy to disclose all that. It was more just trying to understand how rules that were written for MRFs, where material is actually separated out, whereas all of the material that comes in through our warehouse has already been separated by our members. So we don't do any of that separation. We don't take anything unless we have a partner who is going to reuse or recycle those items. So it's just a very different operation than again what was sort of envisioned when these regs were written, and we were just trying to work through some of those questions. But again, both those applications are in the works, and we have no reason to believe that those won't get approved.
Jamie?
All right, thanks. Now that I have my fire alarm no longer beeping, I can talk. So Caleb, I'm just super excited to see you tonight. I have to say, I've kept myself from harassing you on LinkedIn saying, when can I get a Ridwell at my house? I would very much welcome a formal presentation to kind of walk us through a bit more. So I guess, Mike, I would just officially request that maybe at the next meeting, or at early January, whenever it suits, is let's get them on the agenda and move forward with hearing it, because I hear great things and I think it's wonderful. So thanks so much for coming tonight and introducing yourself.
Great, thank you so much. We're more than happy to come back and get happy to answer any questions in the meantime.
Thanks.
Okay, Caleb, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Have a great one. Have a great holiday.
You too. Thank you all so much. Really appreciate it.
All right, Mr. Mayor, I have Viva. We're gonna try her again. All right, Viva, go ahead and accept that invitation.
Unmute and start my.
There we go.
Video. Good evening.
Hi, Viva.
I'm Viva Gaylor. My address is 12700 Southwest Beef Bend Road. And before I actually do my little item I wanted, and I won't run over my minutes, I wanted to give the business roundtable that we do at the end of Tuesday. And Jennifer Johnson, who comes to that, was who pointed out the, now I don't have the exact name, the guy that just left.
All right,
Caleb. And the last time it was brought up, Ronnie and Mayor Ken couldn't remember where they first heard it. And so I just wanted to give her credit that she's the one that brought it to the attention from doing the last Tuesday of the month business roundtable.
Exactly. And she brought it up again at the last meeting, and that really sparked our interest again. So thank you, Jennifer.
This evening, I would like to talk about the future, and I would like to have this as a future agenda item. It is an item I have brought up a few years in the past, and I would like to see the city charter changed for the future, to add the future, to have a internship planning commission person for a high school or college student. I think we have an opportunity, and I see, as an old fart, I see the future for the young people, and I want to hear their voice. And I think we are losing a different lens, and we can hear that. And they are the future. Let's include them. Thank you, City Council, for considering having an internship on the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Viva. Outstanding. We'll make that happen.
All right, if anybody else would like to speak, go ahead and raise your hand. Anyone else? Anyone else? Going once?
I'm waiting. Oh,
Going twice.
I
have no.
there's Annie.
No else or
Annie,
no.
Annie.
Oh, Annie, there we go. All right, Annie, go ahead and accept that and then come on in.
Hi, I'm gonna stay on video or off video because I'm outside my house. My kids are crazy inside. My name is Annie Paulson. I live at 17273 Southwest 136th Avenue in King City. I am in here to announce some changes to the King City Community Foundation. I have been elected by my peers to assume the role of president as Jamie is stepping down from that role. Viva Gaylor is our new treasurer, and our new board member, we welcome Heather Wakeham. Thank you.
Absolutely. Outstanding. Sounds like a great team. I know you guys are going to miss Jamie, but well, you know, you guys have a great team in place. That sounds wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. We look forward to having Jamie as a friend of the foundation, and welcome each of you to join as the same.
All right. That sounds great. Thank you, Annie.
All right.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I don't have any emails or no voicemails or anything.
Okay. Well, we can close out the public forum then. Thank you all for your comments. All right. We don't have any unfinished business, so we'll move forward to new business. We have the July and August financials. And Mike, you're going to talk to that?
Yep, as I get here and unmute, but
Okay.
yep. So everyone has the financials that were provided for us by Mira, and this sums up the summary from Mike Mars. We also have something that's coming up next that we can have a further discussion on about the depreciation of our road assets. over the course of a while, but that's our next agenda item. As for the financials for the month of July, so this is typically our month one out of the fiscal year, right? So when you look at where we should be and where we are via the percentage of budget on the right-hand side, typically we like to see those numbers relatively low, right? So as we go through our revenues, revenues are looking pretty good on that side for projected for the year. When we look at our expenditures, you see that they're all roughly, they should all be about 5-6% or under. You're shooting for 1 month out of 12. So as you can see, most of our expenditures are in and around that mark. There's not much to report in July. It's not a very exciting month. As we get further down the pathway into like the first quarter, September, and into the second quarter, January or so, then we start really seeing where we're sitting budgetarily and how things really start to function. I do want to talk really briefly about our audit. Typically in the month of December, we would be presenting you an audit. Our auditors have been delayed. I'm not sure what happened, but I'm guessing just like everybody else is, they're just probably a little overburdened with the whole COVID pandemic and everything else. So we did get word from them just last week when we were like, hey, audit deadline's coming up. Where are we at, guys? That they are going to try to file an extension for us because they aren't ready to submit the report yet, and they don't think that they'll be able to get it done before the end of the holidays. So I just want you to be aware of that. Is there any questions that anyone has on the financial statement? There's not much here.
I don't see any hands raised, so I say no.
Okay.
So the action, do we need a motion to approve?
Yeah, yes, please.
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Raise a hand so we can get a count. Shauna, we can't see you, so what do you say, Shauna?
I'm raising my hand.
Okay, all right,
So I have a unanimous vote then.
okay. Thank you, guys.
And I have Counselor Moore as the motion and Counselor Fender as the second.
That's correct. Okay, we're good? Okay, we'll move on to resolution R-2021-12. And Mike, you talking to that one?
I suppose I am, even though I'm still trying to wrap my head around exactly why we're doing this. But our accountant feels that it's the proper way to illustrate the depreciation of our assets. The depreciation of our assets that really haven't been completely calculated. You'll note that typically when we get our audit report, there's always like a bottom note that says our assets haven't been fully evaluated, and therefore I can't remember the exact language that they always have in there, but it's usually tied to our street system because King City didn't keep track of their road improvements for the first 30 years of their existence.
Mhm.
And so when we started in 2000 and I think it was 3 or 2006, we had Murray Smith and Associates start keeping track of our investments into the road infrastructure. That's when we started actually capturing the value of these assets. But they weren't depreciated because we didn't know what the total value of the assets were. We've since got to a point now where most of those assets that were added back in 2003 or 2000, 2006, or I think this one was 2013, have now depreciated significantly. So what our accountant's saying is that we need to write off the depreciative value of our assets that weren't accounted for prior to June of 2013. So that is a significant chunk of change to our bottom line. But it's also good because it should give us a more accurate reflection of where the city sits financially, instead of having this giant floating a value of $20 million worth of assets sitting out there, when we probably don't have $20 million worth of assets. They're probably depreciated a little bit more than that, and should give us a better and more true reflection of where we sit financially. Hopefully that explains it. I know that financial matters are complicated at best and sometimes very difficult to explain, but I will do my best.
Okay, so what action do we need to take on this? Do we need a resolution? I mean, a motion to approve this resolution? And does everybody feel comfortable enough to be able to do that?
It's basically writing off $12 million worth of value, depreciated value, on net assets that were calculated and just been on our books. We still own them.
Mm-hmm.
And when we do street improvements, that'll kick it back into our asset, and then that asset will be depreciated over a period of time. But right now we're just carrying this huge asset value, which is not really reflective of what we actually have.
Okay, that makes sense to me, but you know, I'm not a financial guy by any stretch of the imagination, but it kind of makes sense. Okay. Any comments or conversation related to this? Any questions to Mike?
I have Jamie Fender with her hand up.
I see your hand.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, candidly, I think we need to do what our advisors advise us, especially in this arena. So if that's what our audit accountant wants us to do, then I say that we do it.
Makes sense to me.
At least moving forward, it won't be a huge chunk, because now we're like, okay, we're depreciating about $200,000 to $300,000 worth of value per year. Whereas this is just like 20 years worth of depreciation. We're throwing it in one big chunk.
Right.
So, but, anyway.
Okay, so we need a motion.
I move that we approve resolution R 2021-12.
Second.
All in favor? Hands,
Aye.
verbal, aye.
I have unanimous vote.
All right, thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. Okay,
That was you, correct? That did the second.
Shauna,
John. Mm,
Counselor Thompson, sorry.
Sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Rules.
Sorry.
Yes, that's correct. Okay, well, that was it for the agenda items. We'll go now into report outs, and we have Chief Hapla up first.
Everybody hear me?
Yeah, hi, Chief.
Hello, good evening. So a couple things on the agenda. We did a quick little traffic study, a 3-day. For those that haven't seen those before, it's electronic reader sign that has the ability to capture all the information as far as cars, time of day, the amount, the speeds, and the average speeds. And so 3 days on King George and about the 19,000 block, which would be between 116th and Queen Elizabeth. For 3 days, a Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 467 cars were measured. 15.8 was the average speed. They've been getting a lot of complaints in the area, but of the 467 cars, there were a total of 9 that went over the speed limit. The highest speed being 29. So there's that information. We should be able to, hopefully, I've got a licensing issue going on with this company. And so we've I'm not able to print that out yet, but we should be able to here real quick. And today we did a kind of a deeper dive. We talked a little bit about the body cameras last week with Axon, or the last meeting. And today we did a deeper dive into evidence procedures and capturing video. And the big eye-opening one was redaction, which deals with videos that are going to be released to, say like, I guess it would be, court proceedings, that sort of thing, where somebody comes up or a FOIA request is made and we have to go through a certain amount of redaction. And in looking at the redaction, and this is all stuff that's included with what we have, but it's got a lot of AI, a lot of stuff to where we can blur faces, we can redact we can mute out certain things that deal with HIPAA, deal with juveniles, sexual assaults, tactical information that we don't really want exposed, on somebody's YouTube channel, right? And so as we looked at that, one of the questions I brought up was, how long does it take, new people, say like Brian and I, that are going to be doing this, how long does it take to redact video? And Axon advised me that San Diego County actually did a study on that. And so for every hour of video, there is 8 man-hours of redaction. And so it's mind-boggling. And so I should be able to, at a later date, be able to show you all what goes on in redaction and why it takes so long. But it really just points to an issue we're going to have with just basically manpower hours. There was one of the examples that they showed was a shooting in California where 8 officers had their Axon video came up. And so the defense had asked for 20 hours of video. And so that's 160 man hours of redaction and working on that. And so the bill was $16,000. And so we're going to need to, and I talked to Ronnie about this earlier, we're going to have to come up with, and I don't think we have it, a new fee structure to go with how much it's going to cost for us to sit down and go through and do these redactions. And so that's something that'll be coming down the line pretty soon for y'all. And so, yeah, it's kind of an eye opener for me today. We were kind of worried about storage of all this information, but it appears that the redaction part's probably going to be the most difficult as far as man hours and dealing, just because we're down staff and it's going to be tough to meet, timelines where people want something, because now when we receive a FOIA or information request, it's just a blanket. We want all physical evidence and all audio or video. And so you've got to go through all this stuff. So it's going to be an interesting process. And again, we're probably looking at July before those cameras are up and running. And my last thing was our candidate for the new position is completed with the testing. I should have results tomorrow. And so we'll be able to know if we're going forward with that. And with that, that's all I got. Any questions, let me know.
Sounds good, Ernie. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Any questions for Ernie?
I have Counselor Moore with her hand up.
Oh, I see. It just fades into that box back there. Kate?
I have a quick question, Ernie. How do you decide where to do the traffic studies? Was this one because there were complaints in an area?
Yeah, there were complaints. And so they had asked for speed signs and stuff. And so we went out there and we've kind of talked about this, and I don't know if you were in some of the meetings before, but we talk a lot about perception.
Yep.
And this is one of those areas where, perception and what is actually a real speed that the car is traveling. And so, it's one of those that it's another one of those eye openers where you look at it and go, it's a lot of cars in 3 days, especially on a weekend. And to see that the speeds weren't as high as what people say they are. And so again, it's just one of those perception versus reality issues. And then, yeah, we basically will go where there are complaints. It's the same with, I think the last one I did before that was down at Royalty Park where there was actually an eye-popping amount of traffic down there. I think in 5 days, we measured over 5,000 cars on Royalty Parkway. And so again, the speeds were, I think it was actually under 20 miles an hour, the average speed on the road, but I think it was around 19. But yeah, so it's kind of a complaint driven thing to where it's like, if you want to see it in the area and I can safely put it in an area, and I have to attach it to a street sign. And so it's made to be bolted to that. The machine has got cameras in it. And basically the camera is more for me to see the picture of the person that's trying to steal it. And it also has a GPS, so I know where it goes if somebody does take it. Yeah, there's some interesting deals. It's a great tool. I mean, Ronnie loves it because of the data that it spits out. And it's a really cool thing. Ronnie's done heat maps with it before. And it's a neat deal to have.
It's a great investment for sure. Okay. I don't see any other hands. I'm trying to do it. Oh, I see
Dave Platt.
Dave?
Ernie, I got just a quick stray question. It appears to me like at Durham and 99, there are intermittent flashes that don't seem to be related to anybody doing anything that's a violation. Do they have those things set so that occasionally it flashes just to keep people on edge?
Yeah, so what I was told, because I have actually brought this to their attention, because I go through there early in the morning, and I am told that is the system preparing itself for an impending light change. And so if you're ever there and you see it, and you see those, I think it's 3 quick flashes or a minimum of 2, that you'll probably see within 5 to 10 seconds that there's a light change on the roadway for 99 traffic going north and south. At least that's what I've seen when it's happened. And so it's always it's peculiar. I get asked this question almost daily in that areas, but that's what I've been told, is it's just preparing itself for a change. It's alarming sometimes when all of a sudden you see the flashes go, and especially when you go through there, and I drive pretty slow, and all of a sudden I'm like, why did that just flash? I didn't do anything. And so I've been startled by it myself.
Thanks.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Ernie. I think that's it for you. We'll move on to Mike.
All right. Let's see. So this week I spent a day over at Clean Water Services, touring some of their sites, which was really nice. Kind of learning a lot about what they're trying to do. There's some information coming out about the Scoggins Dam situation in Hag Lake, as well as potential expansions for the Durham facility. I was actually pretty surprised at how much of an underground tunnel network there is there. And it was pretty impressive overall. Also had some conversations about the expansion of the Purple Line. That we've been trying to promote this and trying to figure out how we can make a Purple Line expansion work and happen in our area. Cost estimates are in. That project estimates coming in at about 3.8 million for the expansion of the water. So we would also look to put a pump station down at like 131st and Fisher, possibly on the property there at the corner. So we would need to talk to that property owner. That would be the preferred site for the distribution. Secondary alternative site would probably be down at the park. But conveyance and the cost of construction are all probably about 50% higher than where they would have been probably a year or two ago. So then the question comes, like, how do we knock something like this out when we only have, $500,000 to throw at a project? $500,000 is pretty significant, and it goes a long ways to illustrate King City's participation and willingness to partner on this project. And if we can get Clean Water Services to partner with us, and they do seem like they're willing partners to partner with us on this, we might be able to take this pretty good chunk of the way. But typically you just got to take it one step at a time. And so that's what we're trying to do, is just figure out how we can implement this through a series of baby steps and get this thing across the finish line. Clean Water Service is desperately trying to get this off the ground and get this purple line out there. It just helps on so many different levels for hitting their environmental quotas, hitting their energy conservation quotas. It does them a lot of good, and it does us a lot of good. So we can figure out how to get this thing actually going and active. I think they're really excited about it. I'm really excited about it. I think the residents of King City and the neighborhoods that we might be able to tie into, like the Highlands and Edgewater and others that have irrigation systems along the pathway, will benefit from this in the long run. But some really good conversations to be had there. As for Scoggins Dam, to get an earthquake, to secure the dam so that there's not a breach and the water doesn't flow out, and preserve the water. One, they have a storage shortage. So they're short on storage and they need more, about 20% more capacity than what they already have. They're looking at ways that they can support the dam and ways that they can add retention. So the projects that they have three alternatives. The highest price alternative was about 1.18 billion. They they have about 30 to 35 million. And I think they can get an additional 500 million. They think they can get about an additional 500 million in federal funds, which leaves a gap of, roughly $500 to $600 million. So it's an uphill battle for them. They're trying to figure out how they can make it happen and what they need to do.
Mhm.
That's the update from the Clean Water Service side of things. The
Mike,
master-
does that entail reinforcing the dam or building?
Okay, so the first alternative was about 775 million. That would be supporting and building up the current dam system. So that would just be a retrofit to the current system by expanding the dam itself. The next one up was about 1.14 million, and that would add a what would it do? It would put in it would add the retention. So that would add the additional 17, or it's like 14% additional retention, which is short of what they're projecting they need. And then the third option would be to add the additional 20% retention, but it builds a whole new dam down below, about a mile downstream of where Scoggins Dam is currently. And that would add the additional retention that they would need. So those are the three alternatives, Dave. Did that answer your question? You were kind of breaking up when you.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Other news, master plan is back up and running. Thanks to the Metro Council, we were awarded $130,000 in Metro funding. That came through on Friday last week, I want to say, is when it was like the 3rd, Friday the 3rd. Is when Metro approved it at their council meeting. And so that IGA has been sent my way to review the revised scope, and I okayed the scope yesterday. So that was sent back to Metro yesterday with my letter, or vote of approval to move forward on it. It does bump our timeline. The projected timeline now is into December of 2022. So it pushes it out almost an entire year from where we initially were. That's something that you should all be aware of, because I think it puts, hearings and all the public involvement events are going to be hitting around, October, November, December of 2022. So you guys should all know that. But we'll start the SAC and TAC here shortly. They're going to re-kick some of the evaluations for East-West transportation networks. Ronnie got some LiDAR information, which really helped us out. Before we had contour maps, but the LiDAR just really sets it in a different tone and kind of makes it so much more obvious what's out there. That's kind of where we sit master plan wise. I want to back up 1 second, back to Clean Water Services. We have an old IGA with Clean Water Services from like 1999. It was actually between it was Unified Sewerage District and King City. And so they're trying to upgrade and update their IGAs. So when the IGA is finished with review from legal counsel and sent back to me, that'll probably be put on the agenda for next month in January as well. So sorry about that. I forgot that piece. Onto the transportation system plan. I'm sorry, this is taking forever. We finally received the final draft, kind of final draft, not really final draft, but kind of the transportation system plan. We received it on December 4th. It was December 4th is when we received it. It was Saturday. Keith and I have been reviewing it this last week. It looks a lot better than the previous one. At least it has the policies and goals that are set up front and kind of set the tone for the rest of the document. Still missing some fairly important elements, I believe. They're still tweaking chapter 6, which is the final chapter, and it still doesn't have any of the appendices and maps that go along and exhibits. But it's a much better document than it was before. I think we've made some strides there and kind of happy that it's gone back to 3rd and 4th rounds here. But that'll probably be coming out. And we also have, should coincide with the start of the East-West transportation network look. Road construction, we just finished 116th. Bexley, Monterey, or was it not Montague? It was Montague.
Mm-hmm.
So the cost of that came in a bit higher than what we anticipated. Construction costs are up significantly. I'd say anywhere from 15 to 20% higher than what we were anticipating. So Ronnie, correct me if I'm wrong. I think we're 50. Was it 50K over on what we had?
Off the top of my head, yeah. And the other reason was Bexley and Majestic were undermined the road filling. So that added extra cost because we needed to take the whole road out and repave it. So that was unforeseen.
Yeah, we only had like 2 inches of asphalt, so when we grinded it down, we were into gravel.
Yeah.
So that was kind of sad, but now it does have 3 inches, so we should be good to go. Beyond that, I already covered the audit delays, the TSP vaccine status. A lot of these cities have to worry about the vaccine mandate. At King City, we're pretty fortunate. Everybody already has their vaccines and everyone did it voluntarily. So I don't think there's any point in us trying to push forward any sort of policy. I know that deadline's coming up here.
Mm-hmm.
And so right now it's kind of a moot point for us. So I just want to put that out there. Hopefully we can keep that going so we don't have to make some sort of rule or policy.
Yeah, and Mike, on that subject, we did have some pretty extensive conversation at the Washington County Mayor's meeting on Friday of last week. And Jamie sat in on that. The question really came up from the mayor of Banks, Stephanie Jones, who was trying to figure out what she should do. but I made it pretty clear that we are fortunate because we are fully vaccinated. And you were on that meeting. Were you on that call? Yes.
I was.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I think we are an exception to the rule based on what a lot of folks were talking about. You know, Tualatin spoke about it, Tigard spoke about it, and and I think Forest Grove as well, about the fact that they have had some issues where some people maybe even had to be let go or decided to leave because of the issues surrounding them not wanting to be vaccinated. So I just simply said that we were fortunate that way, that we haven't had any issue along those lines.
Yes. Counselor Moore, you have your hand up.
So obviously, once people are vaccinated, they can't be unvaccinated. However, I wonder if considering a policy might not be a bad idea. Because when you have to hire someone again, you will want to have a policy in place for that. What do you think about that?
It's one of those things. I think right now it's it's a why create problem when you don't have one, right? But if it becomes an issue, I think then we'd have to move forward with some sort of policy. But I think right now it's a moot, like I was saying, it's kind of a moot point, and I'd rather cross that bridge when I have to.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so the question, and I think Kate is making a point, but this is just a question. Say, for instance, an example is the new officer that we're talking about hiring. What would we do about an individual who we are going to hire, like an officer? And what do we say in terms of what we want in terms of a vaccinated officer to hire on? Do we say you must have it, or we say we would like for you to have it? What do we do?
I would ask at this point, because we don't have the policy in place, although it is like kind of a state policy coming at us. And many of these other cities are having to deal with it. We're also a smaller employer, so we can kind of avoid that if we desired. We don't have to necessarily go down that. There's still a lot of lawsuits that need to be worked out.
Yeah.
And I figure let the big boys do that and figure out why drag ourselves into a legal battle on it.
Mhm.
I figure let those other agencies handle that, and then when the outcome finally comes down, we'll just deal with the outcome of those legal battles as those other agencies fight them out.
Okay.
If I can, one of the things I heard a follow up on it, but one of the things they were holding in Tigard, and I'm not sure about Tualatin, but the state of Oregon was saying that police officers were exempt from this mandatory rule, and so I don't know. I think that might be what Mike's talking about as far as suits and stuff like that go through, but that's kind of where it stopped as far as I know. And so that's why we haven't heard of, mass firings from police agencies because of that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. No, I agree. Let me go back, Mike, talking about the transportation system plan and the master planning process. One of the other things that we had was at the Washington County coordinating committee meeting. We had a presentation from the DLCD. Is that what it is? Conservation Land, whatever it's called. And a person by the name of Kevin Young and his team gave a presentation regarding those policies that they're working on in terms of parking requirements and so on and so forth. One of the things that was stated is that they have reached out to city staff to talk about these kind of things and what they're working on and how those policies might impact city after city. What the response was, well, we have talked to Keith Leiden on some of the things that are coming forth and what we've been working on. But one of the things that Jamie and I talked about, the presentation that they gave, I think would be helpful for all of you to hear. And I would encourage you guys to reach out to them and have them come to council and present. One of the things that they said, well, we're a small organization and there was a little backpedaling going on in the response. But I think we need to stay after them, at least to let everybody know those things that are being worked behind the scenes on those issues, because they are in fact related to our transportation system plan and master planning process. Jamie, speak up on this if you have any comments.
Ken, it's the climate friendly rulemaking by
Right.
and Department of Land Conservation and Development. And yeah, that was one of my little points that I had on my list to just kind of share with you guys. But there are some rules there that they're developing, some policies that they're coming up with. The parking one is definitely one of our concerns. And Keith and I have voiced those concerns, and we've sent letters to them and emails saying, hey, you guys, your parking policies don't necessarily work in a suburban climate. But we're not the only ones. Many of the other cities are doing much the same thing. Bottom line,
there was some strong feelings.
Yes, there
about
were.
parking.
Yeah, we didn't make much headway. We sent it in and we complained about it, and we basically got kind of whatever, you guys will be fine. So yeah, we didn't. Our points were received, but not really incorporated.
Well,
So
and I was thinking about this, and I think it may be another one of those things where the joint effort, if not the 5 families, meaning Tigard, Tualatin, Sherwood, Durham, not so much Durham, but we need to stand shoulder to shoulder on this to make it clear to them where our concerns are. And when that opportunity presents itself, we don't want to miss it. And we need to keep pressure on them that there is deep concern within these Southwest cities, and let them be known that we have some concerns that they need to address.
And my final thing for the day was TVF&R related. As many of you know, their bond passed at the last election. Part of what they'll probably look to is purchasing some property down off Roy Rogers, where we were talking about east-west collector kind of coming in. So we might need to get on the ball about some property acquisition down there, and maybe figure out how we come up with some funds to join forces with them on buying some property over there. Because I'm guessing they're going to be ready to move pretty quickly once those funds become available to them. Also on the TVF&R front, Alan Kennedy, which some of you may have met and know and been around for a long time, he just recently retired.
Oh, okay.
So he's off and enjoying retirement, but there's a little bit of swap there. That is all I really have to report, and I know that is a very long-winded report, and I do.
Well, that's good. I mean, it was a good report. Did you want to talk about Juneteenth and the holiday and what we want to do on our end?
Sure. So, I had the city managers meeting earlier today, and I recall that we passed a proclamation, Mayor, a few months back, recognizing Juneteenth as a holiday, but we don't do any observance for it. And what I've found is that many of the cities here in Washington County and many of the labor unions are negotiating for the observance of Juneteenth as a holiday. So there's a couple of interesting perspectives that we can take, a couple of interesting ways that we can work this. Tualatin incorporated a MOU with their labor group to recognize it, to temporarily recognize it as an observed holiday. until they get into the next round of negotiations. We could simply forego the MOU and pitch it to the union and just say, hey, we'd like to select this as an observation holiday and just add it to our list of holidays. I'm sure they're not going to object, but we can throw it out there and ask them if they want to object. But it is becoming more and more, it's gaining steam as an observed holiday. And so I know that Mayor, you and I had a conversation, I think just like last month or the month before, about having a discussion on Juneteenth and whether the council wanted to put it on the agenda for a conversation. If we wanted to think about a resolution for observance of that as a holiday. And just so y'all know, it's observance as a paid holiday. So there would be financial considerations that we would need to look at. There would, for police officers, and Ernie, you might want to chime in on this. I think holidays are at it's like 1.5 or 2 times the regular. I think it's 1.5. Ernie, am I mistaken on that? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I mean, we're just paying that once a year, right? I mean,
yeah, but how do we dole it out? Is it 1.5 times or is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, time and a half, yeah.
So it would be like an overtime situation on that we'd have to be cognizant of for pay, adding that into our schedule of observance. But we can have those conversations, and if the council elects to do that, and staff can go back and crunch the numbers and bring those numbers to you, and then we can come up with a course of action and figure out what the best method to move forward.
Okay, well, let me say it this way. You guys will make the decision, and I encourage you to do whatever you can to make sure that the city of King City recognizes Juneteenth, and to make sure that our staff understands that it's a significant holiday, a significant recognition, and that whatever we need to do in order to honor it, I would love to see it happen. You guys will have to make that decision, but I'm advocating for it, okay?
Councilor Fender, you have your hand up.
I do have my hand up. I echo Mayor's comments. I very much want us to figure out how to observe it formally. You know, at some point it will be recognized as a federal holiday, and that's coming through, but I don't know the conditions or the time frame of all of that. So but I would love to put this on, and I would like to do this not what I would urge us is that we don't put this on the agenda for June. We put this on the agenda soon so that it's already in place, and right, this is something, doesn't need to be a knee-jerk reaction to, you know, whatever. I think it means more if we just put it on the agenda and make it a priority. So that would be my pitch.
Love it. Any other comments? Okay, Mike, you all done?
Yep, I'm all done.
All right, Smart.
Yes, so I attended the Water Advisory Board meeting last week, the 8th. The meeting was held virtually. And right now with the rains coming down, we're informed that they will start filling up the reservoirs now in preparations for next year if we have need to use the water from the reservoir. So right now the rains are coming down enough for them to start filling them up now. So that's what the plan is. Also, you all remember I mentioned that John retired, and they're still trying to find his replacement. So right now they have 2 candidates they are interviewing, and I think they might end up having one of them taking that position. So more to come on that. Then the last thing I have from that meeting is about the meeting coming next year. So they're proposing to kind of try to start having in person, maybe start in February, but that's not, it's not like agreed to yet. Just keeping an eye out on the variant and everything else that's going on. But right now, what the group was told was to be kind of open to in person in February, but if situations don't change and it's still the same as it is, we might end up continuing with virtual. So that's all I have for today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Smart. Let's go to Kate.
I don't have much to report today. At the last impact meeting, Pride gave a presentation that was really similar to what we had, but some of the representatives there got a little bit more into the questioning and I guess requesting that Pride does a little bit more to help cities let citizens know that we're not the ones making rate changes. And so that is a conversation that we had at one of our meetings. And that was a little bit more of a repeat. And so Pride has heard that request and they try to have, information and documents available. And we just still need to make sure that we're communicating with citizens how that happens and that it's not us changing those rates from Pride. So that's about it.
Okay. Thank you, Kate. Appreciate it. Let's go to Jamie.
All right. Well, I've been busy shadowing Mayor Gibson at all his various meetings, which has been enlightening and exciting, and I've enjoyed it. I attended the Highlands craft market, which I don't know if anyone else was able to attend, but I highly recommend that you all go next year. I made some purchases and it was wonderful, and I'm exceptionally tired tonight because my son was sick last night and I've been working just crazy. So, but I do have one item that I would like to discuss, or two items, I guess. So the first is I would like to discuss having our January meeting be a hybrid meeting, and see if we can attend kind of in person, but also on the phone with people getting boosters, and kind of there's a lot of meetings that are shifting back to a hybrid form. So I wanted to take the temperature of everyone and see what everyone's feelings were about that.
You want a response now? Micah has his hand up.
Okay.
I'd say with the new variants, no. I think we should wait.
Okay. Anyone else have strong feelings either way? Go ahead.
I don't,
Yeah.
because what I'm going to report on, I probably won't be there for the January meeting anyway. So
Got it. All right. Okay, Shauna, or not Shauna, Kate.
I would probably personally be okay, but I still I'm not excited about the idea.
Okay.
I just, for the same reasons Micah mentioned, I think that you're right. So many places are gathering, so many people are getting together. I don't know. It doesn't quite feel right. I kind of want to get through like flu season.
Okay. Sure. I just wanted to take everyone's temperature ish and see what we're thinking.
Well, Mike has his hand
Mike
up.
Weston, go ahead.
I would say the glory of the hybrid model is it allows you to do both. And many of the other cities are setting the January one date to come out and start the hybrid, we'd be kind of coinciding with some of these other cities if we did. I'm fine with it. I kind of like, being able to have the flexibility to be home when my wife's not here to, keep thumbs on these little guys jumping all over the place so that the house doesn't get burnt down in my absence. But at the same time, I recognize that there's definitely a value to in person, getting that give and take on emotional reactions and kind of expressions that we can do. So like Kate. So I think there's value to that. It'd be good to see everyone every now and then. I'm not saying that we have to do it every time, but maybe we try a hybrid. Maybe 1 month we have a meeting in person, and the next month we go virtual, and next month we go in person again. And that way it kind of spreads it out a little bit. But I think that's the glory of the hybrid, is that you don't necessarily have to be there in person if you feel that you're not ready for it.
Right. I see Ronnie has his hand up, and then Micah.
Micah was before me.
Either way.
Okay. I was just more noting too. I want to know. I'm all for getting us back to in person and being able to have that. I just, my opinion on it is really coming from the fact that we do have a new variant that's spreading and becoming dominant in our country. And we have holiday surges that are coming because of people getting together. So it seems prudent to me, if we're setting an example for our community, is that we table that type of a discussion until February or something, after we've actually seen what the effect is from holiday get-togethers and from the new variant.
Okay. Ronnie?
Yeah, so I'm just putting this out there. Agree with Mike and everyone. King City has upgraded its system, so we are able to do hybrid much easier now. So we can keep that in mind too.
Okay. And I just want to comment on something that I said when the mayors of Washington County met on this. I said that one of the concerns that we had initially was that we are confident in the staff, we're confident in the council being properly vaccinated, but being able to control the public piece of it, whether or not people are coming in unvaccinated and all those kind of things is a challenge, can be a challenge. And I was most concerned about that when we said we need to stay with virtual meetings, because of we're going to have to deal with who can show up and who can come in when we go to public meetings. So that's just something to consider. It's just another piece of it. No concern at all about this team being vaccinated and doing what is necessary. It's
Right.
that other piece.
Right. All right. My last item to raise tonight is, Mayor Gibson, it's soon to be your retirement.
Yes, it is.
And you will be leaving us, which we're very sad for, but we know you'll be around. But you have meant an incredible amount. I think I can speak on behalf of everyone that you've meant a great deal to all of us as your mentorship and your leadership. And you have done just a phenomenal job leading the city and guiding the city from, candidly, just kind of a afterthought, I think, in the metro region to a well-established and respectable city. And I really think that the credit, right, is obviously shared. It's not yours alone. Certainly Mike Weston is a big part of that as well, and his team and the prior counselors before us. But I think respect is due where it's earned, and you certainly were at the forefront of that. So for that, Mayor, I would like to propose to everyone that we figure out how to observe October 21st as Gibson Day in the city of King City. And I would like to add that to the agenda for the next meeting so that we can turn October 21st. And I may or may not, as my children scream downstairs, we may celebrate, Mayor, by parking our cars backwards in King City that day or some forth. But we will have to think of something fun. But I think that would be a fitting tribute to all of your achievements for the city of King City. So I don't know how to make that happen. So Mike, can you somehow put that forward?
I appreciate
Certainly
that.
try to work on it.
I appreciate that very much. And look, everything we've done as a team, and I'm a team player. You guys are team players. So none of what I've been able to accomplish could have been accomplished without you guys. And I mean that sincerely, and that's the way I see it. And I will always see it that way. So having the best team makes you a winner. There's no doubt about it. We see it at every level, in every kind of organization and sport that you can think of. No wins happen without a team. That's what it's all about. So thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm honored and humbled at the same time. So we need to hear from Dave Platt, and then I'll finish up.
And Shauna.
And Shauna, I didn't.
And Micah.
I'm a very visual person.
And
Okay.
I kerfuffled you with Gibson Day. I apologize.
Yeah, okay. Hi, Dave.
Okay, well, I would like to just add to comments about Mayor Ken. And I just have to say it's been my honor to serve with him. And I really appreciate his leadership, his input, and I'm really grateful. And I'm preparing for my third retirement, and kind of looking forward to it. I'm still not quite loose of one of my other boards. Life goes on.
Absolutely. And I'm going to throw that back at you, Dave. You've been an instrumental part of this team, and I'm honored to walk out the door with you. That dual retirement feels good to me, and I just appreciate everything that you've been able to do, not just for this city and this council, but you've been a very important player in all of the successes of the Highlands as well. And it's just got to be much appreciated, the way you work with Mike and the rest of the team on the annexation was super important, and you've just been special to us, and I truly appreciate everything that you've done as well. So thank you, Dave. Appreciate it.
I would also add, it's been great to be associated with Michael. He's doing a great job for the city, and your counselors need to make sure you hang on to him.
Okay, much appreciated. I'm sure that we all feel the same way about Michael. So thank you, Dave. Shauna.
Hi.
Hi.
I don't have much to report. I have a board meeting tomorrow for the WCCCA. And so I'll have more to report on that at our next meeting. But other than that, that's about all I have.
Okay, Shauna, thank you so much. All right, now look, we need to talk about something. Kate and I had some very in-depth conversation about policy and processes, and we immediately started talking about next steps. I thought that, and I wasn't really thinking too deeply on this, that my last council meeting would be on January 19th. However, the way this plays out, and Kate reminded me that you cannot make appointments when there's no vacancy. So therefore, we're talking about having a special meeting on the 29th to interview the candidates. And Ronnie, has anything changed? We have 2 candidates still? Okay, so we still have only 2 candidates. The opportunity to apply ends on Friday, the 17th at 4 o'clock. Okay, so if we, in fact, are going to do interviews on the 29th, we have to be able, we can't appoint those people until there are actually openings. And so this technically should be my last meeting along with Dave's last meeting. We can participate on the 29th, I believe, but that would be it, because we have to clear the path for those appointments to occur. You guys, does that make sense? With that being said, we need to make a decision now on how we want to handle this and make it clear on what it is we're going to do. I'm perfectly okay with this being my last official council meeting along with Dave, because as Kate mentioned, we want to do it right. We want to make sure that we're following the proper rules for this kind of thing. So I need to hear from you all on what we want to do here.
I agree with that.
I have a question.
Yes.
So can you be at the meeting on the 29th and help with the interview process and the vote, but you need to retire, actually appoint someone? I just need clarification on that.
So Councilor Tom, it is only an interview on December 29th, only in December. There is no action, there is no voting, there is just an interview. Councilors do questions. It's just a discussion.
So if we decide to appoint someone after the 29th, are we thinking that that's going to be at our next city council meeting, or are we going to appoint somebody in between the 29th and the next council meeting?
It depends until the 17th. We have a couple more days. So we have January 5th for possibly interviews or appointment if we need, or we just wait until the 19th, which I believe Mike and I agree that the regular city council meeting will be where you appoint them.
So let's talk about how that works then. If we have the meeting on the 29th and say Dave and I are not included in that, okay? And I'm not advocating that we have to be. I would love to be, but there are a couple of things that have to take place here. So the meeting on the 29th, you interview, let's assume that there are only 2 candidates, okay? You interview those 2 candidates and you say, yes, we're now going to appoint them to the council. The next meeting that you have then would either you're going to do it on the 29th and say, yes, you guys are acceptable. We are now going to move forward, or how does that process?
No, so the 29th is just an interview day. There's no appointing, there's no process. It's just asking questions to the applicant. That's it.
Okay.
And then the 19th is the day that we need to appoint that, so that the council at that time will make a motion with their recommendation. Right, Mike? Do you want to? That's what we're going for.
Counselor Moore has her hand up.
Okay, great.
I have a question on time. That evening's not good for me. I don't know about y'all, but
What
is it in the day?
I'm sorry. Excuse me?
What evening?
What do you mean, Mike?
What's the time that we're planning on?
December 29th
I got the day. What's the time?
at 6 p.m.
Uh,
Yeah, that's, we've already talked about this a couple of times. I only had you and a couple of counselors respond. So,
So we can't discuss the candidates if we're not in a meeting. So that's why we can ask questions and interview, but we can't then on the 29th sit around and decide who we're going to appoint in a couple of weeks. We need to have that discussion in a public meeting. That's my understanding.
the interview is a public meeting. There's a quorum. It has to be a public meeting.
Okay.
But no decision can be made on the 29th. It's only because it's been noticed, right?
You guys can discuss it. Absolutely. You can talk amongst yourselves and stuff like that. But there is no action.
And isn't that because the 30 days hasn't passed, right?
No, it's not a regular meeting.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so let's be clear, because I just want to make sure we know what we're talking about doing here. If you need to have a quorum when you have the special meeting on the 29th. Okay, and can you have a quorum if Dave and I don't participate?
We wouldn't be counted in the quorum.
Say that again?
We would not be counted. Our position would not be counted in the quorum. It would only be what?
No, on the 29th, if you guys are resigning at the end of December, you're still on the council on the 29th.
Okay.
Correct.
So we can participate on the 29th, participate in the interviews, but when the selection is made on the 19th or whatever that date is, we won't be part of that. We will be gone. Okay. When you put those two people in place to replace us on January 19th, you will also have to then put them in place, select them, and they take a seat on that night, right? They take a seat on that night, and then you guys will have to name your mayor and council president all at that same meeting, and then you're done.
Yes.
Correct.
Right? Okay.
So interview. Oh, go ahead, Mike. I don't want to cut you off.
First off, we don't need a quorum for an interview panel. And that's all the 29th is. It's an interview panel.
Okay.
So it's just, the candidates and whoever wants to ask them questions. And so it's an interview panel. It doesn't even need to be a public meeting. It's just an interview panel. The public meeting is when we host the quorum and do the selection on January 19th.
Okay.
That's your quorum. That's your public hearing. That's where you can ask any additional questions that you need to ask.
Okay.
The interview panel doesn't need to be.
So Mike, unless you guys do a committee right now with only 3 counselors, if I have more than 3 counselors show up to this interview, it will be a public meeting.
Right. I would
So
agree.
you guys need to make a
limit it
decision.
so you don't
You
have
guys
it.
need to make a decision right now who's going to attend that. And then they can report on the 19th.
But there's no reason it can't be a public meeting. We just aren't going to take any action. It's just an interview. You can have both a public meeting and an interview.
That's my understanding of it too.
Right. So I think go ahead.
Ronnie's concern is that if you have over 3 and then we have 4, then it's a quorum, and then he has to notify it as a public meeting. If we only have 3, it's not a public meeting. It's just an interview, and we don't have to notify and follow all the public meeting law.
Oh, I thought it was already published. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I thought it was
not been published yet.
Yeah, it's been published. It's been approved.
So then what? So there's no issue because it's already been noticed, right?
Yeah. So it's a public meeting.
Oh, yeah.
It's already identified as a public meeting then. So that's a non-issue.
It's a non-issue.
Okay. So, and even if only 3 people show up, it's still going to be a public meeting.
Right.
Okay. All right. So the bottom line is this. I have total confidence in you guys, whoever's going to show up. If I'm confident that there's going to be at least 3 of you on the 29th, Dave and I don't need to be there. You guys are the ones who have to make this decision, and you guys are the ones that need to put these people in place on the 19th. So technically, you know, this could be our last meeting, which both Dave and I are comfortable with. And we can hug and kiss and say goodbye, you know, and that's it. I'm okay with that.
What I'm hearing is that you don't want to come to the meeting on the 29th.
Yeah. My one question is this though, when does the vacancy, when is the actual vacancy closed?
17th.
On the 17th?
This coming Friday at 4.
Okay, got it. That was my only concern, is I just didn't want to have an interview panel prior to when the close of the, all right. Well, I will hold my hand up and I will be there to interview our 2 applicants on the 29th, and I won't make any decision at the meeting, but I will be there.
So I see at least 3 people who said they will be there. 4. Okay, you guys are good to go.
I'll be there.
All right. And Shauna, I couldn't see your hand, but all right. We have a full crew. Dave, I think we're done.
Is it necessary for us to submit anything in writing, or have we made it official?
An
Have they made
official
it
letter
official?
of retirement?
Have you officially resigned? This is a good question.
That is a
Mike,
good-
take it away.
Well, you did announce it at a public meeting, but yes, you do need to give me a letter.
Mm.
Okay, I will draft something and get it to you.
Fair enough.
On a real letter or an
Just a letter so I can put it in your file.
email? Okay.
Do you want that on King City logo paper?
Whatever you choose.
I expect Mayor Gibson that whoever is voted in as mayor, there's going to be an envelope, right? Or the old saying, there's 2 envelopes, right? In the White House desk, one for, saying, here's all the things that you need to know. And
Absolutely.
the next one is blame me, right? Anyway.
Okay, team, I think we're in good shape. We needed to talk about this, and
Did Micah talk yet? No. Yes, he did.
Yeah, I want to thank Kate for educating me on some of these things that we needed to have this conversation surrounding. It's much appreciated. So with that being said, listen, you guys.
Mayor Gibson,
Yes.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you. I don't believe Micah has talked yet.
No, we skipped me, but that's okay.
Oh, Micah, I'm sorry.
We've gone off the rails. I'll talk next month.
We got on a tangent. All right, go ahead, Micah. I'm sorry.
No, I'll talk next month. We're good.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for all that you do. I am going through this, I guess you might call it a farewell tour. And I met with Barbara Sherman this week. She's doing an article in the Tigert Life. I interviewed with what is his name? Eric Schmidt of the Tualatin Valley Cable TV, who did an interview that will be aired soon and available for everybody to see. And of course, there was already an article that was written by Pamplin and the Regal Courier team. But I can't tell you guys enough how honored I've been to serve with you for King City. And it's a pleasure being here, living here. And you got to take credit for all the accomplishments that we've made. One of the things that I keep talking about is that people need to understand how much you guys do and how much of your time it takes to do what you do. This is a different dynamic from being retired. You guys are all full-time employed families with children. And it's not easy to balance all those things. And I understand that. It's a lot easier if you have grown children and you're retired. And I believe that strongly. And I want the community to respect what you do in volunteering your time to do what you do. Your reward is only that you've done something good for this city. That's your reward. That's your pay. And that's the only reason any of you are doing it right now, because you want things to be the best they can be. And I will preach that every opportunity I get. And I just can't tolerate people openly disrespecting you and your time, because it's just not right. And I understand that that's the world in which we live, but I have a very short fuse when it comes to people who don't get that. And they complain and then they don't participate, okay? And I know this is a public forum, but I'm saying it because I think it's important for people to know that you guys keep this city going, along with this wonderful staff that we have. And I want you to be respected for the decisions and the reason that you're doing what you're doing. So I want to thank you. And it's been real, it's been good, it couldn't be better. And every one of you, Smart, thank you. Micah, thank you. David, thank you. Mike, thank you. Jamie, thank you. Kate, thank you. Shauna, thank you. And Ronnie, thank you for all that you've done and all that you're going to do. I want to live in the best city possible, and I think I am. So I expect you guys to keep on keeping on and, you know, do what you do. So
Here, here.
thank you guys. Appreciate it so much. And Ramona thanks you too.
We thank her.
Yeah, right.
So we need a motion to close, not unless somebody else has something else they want to say.
We're never going to close this meeting, Mayor. Keep you around.
Thank you.
All right. Well,
Smart
all right.
wants to say
Did we
something.
get a motion in a second?
No.
I move we adjourn.
Wait,
Guys,
Smart's holding his
Smart
hand up.
has his hand up.
Oh,
Just want to thank you, David. Really appreciate the sacrifice and that you've done for the city. It's been an honor and great pleasure on my part, and I'm sure the other councilors also. So thank you. Really appreciate it.
You're very much welcome, Smart. All right. Thank you,
all
guys.
of you guys.
All right.
I'm not gonna try to compete with Mayor's speech.
Are we adjourning?
Motion on the floor.
Oh yeah, Micah moved. I will second Micah's. Begrudgingly, we don't want to let you and Dave go, but begrudgingly, I will second this motion.
Okay. It's all good. It's wonderful. Thank you, guys.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. Bye.
All
Best
right.
wishes for retirement.
Bye-bye.
I mean,
Bye, everyone. Have a great holidays.
Okay.
Thank-
Oh yeah,
Merry
happy.
Christmas and Happy New Year.